him and every one else towered the elephant. It was now as big as the church. Edward pointed the glass at the man who was patting the elephant's foot, that was as far up as he could reach, and telling it to "come down with you." He was very much frightened. He did not know whether you could be put in prison for making an elephant's keeper about 40 times his proper size, but he felt that something must be done to control the gigantic mountain of black lead coloured living flesh. So he looked at the keeper through the spy glass, and the keeper remained his normal size. In the shock of this failure he dropped the spy glass, picked it up and tried once more to fix the keeper. Instead he only got a circle of black lead coloured elephant, and while he was trying to find the keeper, and finding nothing but more and more of the elephant, a shout startled him, and he dropped the glass once more. He was a very clumsy little boy, was Edward. "Well," said one of the men, "what a turn it give me. I thought Jumbo'd grown as big as a railway station, so help me if I didn't." "Now that's rum," said another. "So did I." "And he ain't," said a third. "Seems to me he's a bit below his usual figure. Got a bit thin or something, ain't he?" Edward slipped back into the tent unobserved. "It's all right," he whispered to his friend. "He's gone back to his proper size, and the man didn't change at all." "Oh," Gustus said slowly. "Oh, all right. Conjuring's a rum thing. You don't never know where you are." "Don't you think you might as well be a conjurer as a burglar?" suggested Edward, who had had his friend's criminal future rather painfully on his mind for the last hour. "You might," said Gustus. "Not me. My people ain't dukes to set me up on any such a swell lay as conjuring. Now, I'm going to think, I am. You hold your jaw and look at the handsome Donna a-doing of her graceful bareback act." That evening after tea Edward went, as he had been told to do, to the place on the shore where the big stones had taught him the magic of the spy glass. Gustus was already at the tryst. "See here," he said, "I'm a-going to do something brave and fearless, I am, like Lord Nelson and the boy on the fire ship. You out with that spy glass, and I'll let you look at me. Then we'll know where we are." "But s'pose you turn into a giant?" "Don't care. 'Sides, I shan't. T'other bloke didn't." "Perhaps," said Edward cautiously, "it only works by the seashore." "Ah," said Gustus reproachfully, "you've been a-trying to think, that's what you've been a-doing. What about the elephant, my eminent scientister? Now then." Very much afraid, Edward pulled out the glass and looked, and nothing happened. "That's number 1," said Gustus. "Now number 2." He snatched the telescope from Edward's hand and turned it round and looked through the other end at the great stones. Edward, standing by, saw them get smaller and smaller, turn to pebbles, to beach, to sand. When Gustus turned the glass to the giant grass and flowers on the sea wall, they also drew back into themselves, got smaller and smaller, and presently were as they had been before ever Edward picked up the magic spy glass. "Now we know all about it, I don't think," said Gustus. "To-morrow we'll have a look at that there model engine of yours that you say works." They did. They had a look at it through the spy glass, and it became a quite efficient motor, of rather an odd pattern, it is true, and very bumpy, but capable of quite a decent speed. They went up to the hills in it, and so odd was its design that no one who saw it ever forgot it. People talk about that rummy motor at Bonington and Aldington to this day. They stopped often to use the spyglass on various objects. Trees, for instance, could be made to grow surprisingly, and there were patches of giant wheat found that year near Ashford that were never satisfactorily accounted for. Blackberries, too, could be enlarged to a most wonderful and delicious fruit, and the sudden growth of a fugitive toffee drop found in Edward's pocket and placed on the hand was a happy surprise. When you scraped the pocket dirt off the outside you had a pound of delicious toffee. Not so happy was the incident of the earwig, which crawled into view when Edward was enlarging a wild strawberry, and had grown the size of a rat before the slow but horrified Edward gained courage to shake it off. It was a beautiful drive. As they came home they met a woman driving a weak-looking little cow. It went by on one side of the engine, and the woman went by on the other. When they were restored to each other, the cow was nearly the size of a cart-horse, and the woman did not recognise it. She ran back along the road after her cow, which must, she said, have taken fright at the beastly motor. She scolded violently as she went, so the boys had to make the cow small again when she wasn't looking. "This is all very well," said Gustus, "but we've got our fortune to make, I don't think. We've got to get hold of a tanner, or a bob would be better." But this was not possible, because that broken window wasn't paid for, and Gustus never had any money. "We ought to be the benefactors of the human race," said Edward. "Make all the good things more, and all the bad things less." And that was all very well, but the cow hadn't been a great success, as Gustus reminded him. "I see I shall have to do some more o' my thinking," he added. They stopped in a quiet road close by Dymchurch. The engine was made small again, and Edward went home with it under his arm. It was the next day that they found the shilling on the road. They could hardly believe their good luck. They went out on to the shore with it, put it on Edward's hand while Gustus looked at it with the glass, and the shilling began to grow. "It's as big as a saucer," said Edward, "and it's heavy. I'll rest it on these stones. It's as big as a plate. It's as big as a tea tray. It's as big as a cartwheel." And it was. "Now," said Gustus, "we'll go and borrow a cart to take it away. Come on." But Edward could not come on. His hand was in the hollow between the two stones, and above lay tons of silver. He could not move, and the stones couldn't move. There was nothing for it but to look at the great round lump of silver through the wrong end of the spyglass till it got small enough for Edward to lift it. And then, unfortunately, Gustus looked a little too long, and the shilling, having gone back to its own size, went a little further, and it went to sixpenny size, and then went out altogether. So nobody got anything by that. And now came the time when, as was to be expected, Edward dropped the telescope in his aunt's presence. She said, "What's that?" picked it up with quite unfair quickness, and looked through it and through the open window at a fishing boat, which instantly swelled to the size of a man of war. "My goodness, what a strong glass!" said the aunt. "Isn't it?" said Edward, gently taking it from her. He looked at the ship through the glass's other end till she got to her proper size again, and then smaller. He just stopped in time to prevent its disappearance.